Well, I asked Greta here today, because we haven't seen each other in 3 years.
3 years.
Which is crazy, since grad school. So I'm getting to see her just to spend some time with her, because she's a dear friend.
Okay.
And also because I wanted her to talk a little bit about her process for the 2 roles that she plays in Clybourne Park. She plays Betsy in the first act of the play and a character named Lindsay in the second part of the play. If you're not familiar with the play, there is going to be some links to kind of that you can go check out so you can familiarize yourself with it. But I really wanted to talk about an actor's process in this ThNerdaview. So first, I know, it's great. It's so great. Greta just made that up like 5 minutes ago, and I'm embracing it. So she's going to start out with Betsy, because both these characters have some interesting differences and some interesting similarities. So tell us about Betsy.
All right, Betsy is Betsy Lindner, married to Carl Lindner, who is the character from A Raisin in the Sun that is the only crossover character. Betsy is 9 months pregnant. She is 2 weeks away from giving birth. That is was the first obstacle, I guess you could say. And I've never been pregnant. I've talked to people, so that was, reading what to expect when you're expecting. Talking to a lot of actors, especially, who knew how to communicate what their experience was best to another actor. I mean, when asking. My cousin is pregnant right now, and she describes it as being bloated and feeling like you constantly have to go to the bathroom.
Comfortable.
Sorry, Elise. But it's talking to other actors where you hold your weight. A lot of it's in your lower back, or it affects your lower back. So that's why when you see a lot of women holding their lower back and just kind of not putting their hands on their hips, putting their hands back there, it's for support, because you have so much extra weight right here, and and especially at 9 months, the baby will have dropped. Yeah. So your stance widens. I have to remind myself not to keep my legs together, to stand a little wider, and just to constantly realize that the baby is probably moving a lot, that it's shifting, that it could give me gas. So if I ever have to burp, I just burp in character. I do. It's liberating. Playing pregnant women is also extremely liberating. I have never felt more confident. It was surprising. I felt like all the costumes we tried on looked great. And other female actors out there may relate to that, or male, but it was really liberating. And so for the pregnancy, that was something that was discussed. Also, Betsy, Carl brings up a little bit of backstory when he's on stage, that Betsy lost a child 2 years ago. It died at birth because the umbilical cord was around its neck. So just knowing that about the character, any kind of little bits of information. Betsy is the smallest character in the play. She's on stage, I think, for the smallest amount, as well as she's also, the biggest obstacle is she is deaf. So she doesn't have a lot to say. Or people don't let her say very much. Yeah. So we luckily, my understudy, Bruce Norris, who's a fantastic actress, we just finished her internship at Milwaukee Rep, is fluent in ASL. And she designed everything that we say to each other. Bruce Norris, who's the playwright, gives you a little bit, kind of a design, but she pared it down for us. I mean, I was learning how to spell everything. I was trying to look up all these words, and I thought I had to, sign every word. I, to, it, the. I thought I had to sign all that stuff. You don't. It's all, there's something it's called. I can't remember what it is, but it's pared down. And basically, you say, how are you? And then it's also going into the voice and placement and working with a vocal coach. And then also looking at the history of the time, which is 1959, what opportunities would be available to a woman who is deaf to learn how to speak, to communicate with the rest of the world. So since Bruce Norris chose to have Betsy speak, and sign, and read lips, which apparently deaf people can read about 30% of lip reading. It came down to, what kind of environment did she grow up in? Mm-hmm. She would need to have, in my mind, very supportive parents. So in my mind, I created a backstory that she had very loving parents who learned ASL themselves. They learned how to, taught her how to speak that way, and also how to create sound. Every deaf person, unless they're mute, can create sound. Mm-hmm. It's forming them into words. So a lot of deaf people these days, some of them you may not even know that they're deaf because their placement is so it's great. Mm-hmm. But back then Betsy wouldn't have had all that. So we decided to make it a little more muffled, a little more kind of a clogged sound, placed very far back in the throat. Mm-hmm. How are you? I'm good. And not every consonant is she's not lufisk. One of the words is lutefisk. Mm-hmm. Lufisk. And sometimes she can get the K out there. And this is like, you see that, like, and so just understanding what her voice would be, what her laugh is. Mm-hmm. She laughs a lot with her husband. Mm-hmm. Whenever she sees him smile, she smiles. She doesn't understand what everybody is doing. I actually used earplugs for the first week of being on our feet. Our first 8 days we spent doing table work, talking about the play, talking about the issues in the play, talking about characters, and which was really helpful with this piece. But I used earplugs just because I was noticing that anytime people would talk or make a sound, I would look. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we take for granted.
Right.
So it was training myself to not do that. And I noticed vibrations. Mm-hmm. I noticed movement. My peripheral vision became a lot stronger, or at least I noticed it a lot more.
Right.
And also, I noticed I was watching people's mouths, trying to make out what they could possibly be saying, and facial expressions, and the energy of the body movement, and trying to piece together a story. And then even though I, Greta, know what's being said, right. If Jim, the minister, is going like this, I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna, it's funny, so I'm gonna laugh, right. Even though he's being offensive because he's talking about tambourines in black churches. But Betsy thinks this is funny. So it's kind of, and then piecing all that together. And my biggest fear with this character is to not make a mockery of it. I know that other productions, she kind of becomes more of a comedic piece.
Relief.
Comedic relief. And she is in this, in our version too, but other portrayals that I've heard about, she's always way louder than everybody else. And we tried that, and we all decided that it was a little too distracting, and kind of, it took away from who this woman is, and made her less of a human being and more of a not a statement, but a stereotype, and not three-dimensional. Right. Not layered. Right. So there are moments when she's really loud, when she's really excited. Even though I heard that. She's really loud when she hears the trunk fall down the stairs. Because she thinks it's so funny. Yeah. And so that's her sense of humor. Yeah. But I think that, kind of having a husband like Carl, who is about, etiquette and things like that, he would say, Betsy, not so loud. Tone it down. Or, I can hear you just fine. Right. And so and all that is working with the other actor, and what they bring, and also playing a really submissive woman of that time, 1959. Betsy, in my mind, it doesn't say this, but I think she's very grateful. She doesn't hear half the shit that Carl Lindner says, which is highly offensive.
Yeah.
He thinks he's just fighting for his neighborhood, but if she heard him, who knows if she'd stay with him.
Yeah.
I think she would. I really do, even though she may not agree with it. Who, in her mind, this is the one person that wants to be with someone like her.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, he's not, like, the most gracious, sympathetic character, but he married a deaf woman, which is kind of a big thing, well, now even, but
what
back
does
then
that,
especially.
Right, what does that say about him? Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, why did Bruce Norris do that? Was he softening the audience's perception of him?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want her to be as warm and as accepting, and even when things are really tense, to still try and smile.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know what's going on. When everything gets heated at the end of Act 1, she has no clue. Mm-hmm. But she's still trying to understand, and she's still trying, you know, what happened? What's mm-hmm. going on? Mm-hmm. You know, what? And no one will talk to her. And this play is about communication mm-hmm. and lack of communication and listening, and to have someone who can't even hear anything mm-hmm. out on stage and be the minority, the one that nobody asks their opinion.
Yeah.
Just like the black couple.
Right.
And they are asked their opinion, but do the white people really care what it is?
Right. No, yeah, kind of as in a way to support what they want, you know,
yeah.
what the white
Carl
guy
even
wants.
uses Betsy as an example of particular kinds of food that people like. She's not a part of the conversation. She tries to be. She doesn't understand what they're saying. They're talking about lupfus, which is a Swedish dish. Mm-hmm. It's a really gelatinous, disgusting fish. But it's a traditional...
Sorry, Swedish people, if any of you really like it.
It's, I mean, the way it's described is really gelatinous. So if you like gelatinous things, right. you would love it.
Right.
Maybe. And I think it might... I don't know if it's salt. It's a way of preserving fish and keeping it mm-hmm. around for a long time. Mm-hmm. But it's a cultural thing, and Betsy loves it. And she gets excited when she realizes what they're talking about, because Bev, the female owner of the house, mm-hmm. has to write it out for her. Mm. And that's something else. Like, Bruce writes in that Bev and Betsy have a conversation on a notepad. Mm. Because Bev does not know sign language.
Right.
So,
very cool.
So then jumping ahead, the 50 years to Lindsay, who's the character I play in Act 2. It's 2009. Mm-hmm. Lindsay is also pregnant, but she's 7 months pregnant, so not as pregnant. There's more mobility. Still, I burp when I want. I don't know if I said that in this interview, but I let myself burp when I want, which is awesome. And also really liberating. They have me in jeans and like this tight tank top that, you know, really reveals the belly. And I've had numerous people ask me after shows or say, "You're not really pregnant?"
Oh, wow.
And that's, you know, it's just a bodysuit, but you know, costume designers did a really great job with that.
How long did you get to work with a bodysuit?
I could have had the whole time pretty much. They had it right away. I mean, we had 8 days of table work, but we used a pillow. The bodysuit is literally like a thong bodysuit. It's really uncomfortable and a pain in the ass to put on. So I wore it around in the rehearsal hall, or in the costume shop, and then I just chose to use a pillow, and we had a long week of tech, and I felt comfortable enough with that. But I noticed it actually sits on my bladder, so at the beginning of every act I would say, "Man, I have to pee now." So, and that's something else, another symptom of pregnancy.
Right.
I think that with Lindsay, the biggest switch was the reverse of roles between men and women. Mm-hmm. You have these men in Act 1 that are really, they are the dominant ones. The women are extremely submissive. Mm-hmm. And then there's way more equality in Act 2. But the way that these women are written, especially the two married couples, the black couple and the white couple, myself and Jerry Nugent, who plays Steve in Act 2, the dynamic has changed, and my character is a lot more dominating and bitchy and hormonal. And when I first read her, I read her as like some kind of corporate type working in downtown Chicago, sick of having to do this long commute to her job, which she talks about. She says that it is slowly eroding her soul. So they found this house at this great deal where you see the set has been vandalized, and it's the same house, but it's no longer charming. It's graffiti everywhere, which is a choice that's been debatable. But I think that, and they want to tear it down. They talked about remodeling it. And the problem is there's the lead abatement and the big crack in the subfloor, so cost effectively it would make more sense to just build this much bigger house that is 15 feet higher than all the other structures. So that's the big issue of Act 2.
Right. And it says something about the character, that she'd want to build this house this way.
Right. And they talk about having a koi pond in the backyard. So all of these little hints throughout the act indicate what kind of people Steve and Lindsay are. They want a koi pond in the backyard. Their house is going to be 15 feet higher than all of the other houses in this all-black neighborhood. They're the first white family moving in there. We talked about at the beginning, Mark Clements, the director, really wanted Lindsay to be the epitome of a liberal-minded, wanting to be seen as a liberal-minded woman of 2009, and how half of her friends are black, and she wants people to know that. They may not be, but she wants people to think that half of her friends are black, and that she's forward thinking, and she voted for Obama, and she's and she's part of one of those cool liberals. But and for me, I first read her as being really uptight and I've said it, but dominating of her husband, and talks to him like he's a child. And what changed for me was Jerry Nugent's portrayal of Steve. He plays him kind of not like a little kid, but kind of just playful and childlike, and kind of like, he reminds me of, I didn't go to a school that had fraternities, but if I picture them meeting in college, and him being like this fraternity boy who was super popular and had all these great friends, and his girlfriend from like freshman year on was one of the sororities, and they got together and they both became successful and started making a lot of money right away, but they're still kind of those kids. And you can see that, and they're the stereotypes. I mean, he's got rolled up pants and white tennis shoes and his Cubs hat, and I mean, he's a total, and I work in some kind of marketing firm in Chicago. I mean, she talks about it's just a name, but I've given it that. And so it changed, like,
you, the actor.
Me, the actor, and it changed kind of who I saw Lindsay to be. She's a lot more laid back. She likes to laugh. I didn't see her as someone who liked to laugh until Jerry's portrayal. And it's something else, in grad school. Who said this to me? I'm sorry. Find the love. I feel like Christine said that to me. It sounds
like a Christine thing to say.
And because it was my fallback is to be angry and to be aggressive and to go there first. But instead with this, it's find the humor, find the love. And why would I be with a man like this? Because he makes me laugh.
Maybe she really is kind of the high-strung type, but she married this man because he takes her out of that.
Exactly. And so it's psychologically understanding the chemistry between people and what would be the drawing factor between these two.
Right.
And to me that's what Jerry brings to his roles. Is he's just funny. He's charming, and he's funny, and he's a goofball. And then he just kind of pushes the envelope a little too much and puts his foot in his mouth. And that's what he does in this play. And then it's my job to like reel him back in and say, what are you saying? And that's not, and he's like, just talking out of his ass, really.
Right.
But he's not. He's making some valid points. But I want everyone to be friends. And, and then for me, it's like, don't do that in a bitchy way. Do it in a loving way. Do it in a, and find all these different ways to talk to your husband that is not just one note.
Right.
Let the audience see with all of these characters who are not, no one's the good guy.
Right.
Let them see their flaws. Let them see their redeeming qualities. you know, and being with this show for so long has really helped that. But it's also, you know, it's also made it challenging. There's tension builds between actors when they're together for that long. And,
Right.
you know, and it's working through all that stuff and maintaining what you opened the show with whilst keeping it spontaneous, which is something else we learned in grad school. So.
Oh, grad school. Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your process there, and you know, as you're saying, you know, research and being open and taking in the other actors and allowing all of that to, you know, affect a performance.
And something else that that really helped me to figure out who Lindsay was for me, because she would be different if you played her. She'd be different if any other person. And it's the same with any role. Mark, the director, wanted me. He's like, I want you to use you. Be you. And he told me later, he's like, I see you as a Lindsay type, even though I'm not very liberal.
Oh my gosh. That's
Don't hate me.
She's not. You should have seen my face the day I found out that she wasn't a liberal. I was like...
You wouldn't know it. But
no, you wouldn't generally.
You know, I have my reasons. We can talk about it if you want.
But not in a ThNerdaview.
No.
No politics here. None. I don't know why the owl had to second that, but the owl says no politics.
Because he's sweet and wise.
Wise owl.
I think that you know, he wanted her to be bubbly and fun and kind of have a bite to her and be kind of quirky and kind of all a mess.
Yeah.
Lindsay is me. But other Lindsays that you see if you go see this play will be something completely different because that play needs these actors to use themselves. And you can apply that to any role that you do. Film or otherwise.
Well, especially because, I mean, in my last talk back, me and Beth Goldberg talked about how a lot of plays now are written like film. So I mean, definitely, and I think this seems like more of a
Act 2
film,
especially,
film kind of a piece. So
it's very still. We don't get up for the first 20 minutes. We all sit in chairs, and these are big house theaters. These are 800 seat theaters. So to do that and keep the audience engaged, and you don't really know what's going on or what's going to happen, you understand it's two different, a black couple and their lawyer and a white couple and their lawyer, and they're having a conversation about this house.
Yeah.
And then it's what else is going to happen?
Right. So I know that we didn't talk a lot about the actual play itself and all of the topics. You know, Greta was just talking a little bit about her characters and her work for those. Is there some place that the nerds here can go check out to learn more?
Milwaukee Rep has a fantastic website that you can check out, and my friend who did the Milwaukee Rep internship with me, Lita Hoffman, as a directing intern, has been an education department assistant for the past 2 years and has created these fantastic study guides for all of the plays that really break them down and cover a lot of the issues. And so if you'd like to read more about it, definitely check that out. She's done a good job with that.
Great, and I will be sure to put that link on this page. And for any of you nerds who are out in the Midwest, get out to Milwaukee, see a play, eat some good food, drink some good beer. And if you're in Arizona right now, get in from the heat and catch a play. They're running for 2 more weeks.
Yep, we close on May 19th.
May 19th.
Sunday.
Right. And you will enjoy Greta, I promise. She was last year the Washington Post?
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal. I knew it was a W. Wall Street Journal, not for this particular performance, but she did get a top 12 performer of the year. Top performer of the year.
Oh, God. Now I sound arrogant.
No, you don't sound arrogant. Girl, get it. Top performer of 2012. It's good. I only bring the best on Theatric with Nerd. So, all right, for ThNerdaview. All right, well, thank you guys. And if you liked this interview, which of course you did, give us a like the interview. And I'll catch you next time.